Alright, I turned the wheel so I can get a little bit better access to those bolts, and I'll get the one started on the top and the side, and then I will get the one started on the top and the back side, and then I will proceed to do the ones that are on the one that is on the front. Sometimes it's really handy to have a helper, somebody who can just turn the steering wheel for you, but we don't. So what we need to do is we need to tighten up these bolts, and we can't tighten them up all the way at once. Well, we got to do a little on each of them and kind of work our way around this hub. Fortunately, it doesn't appear to be really tight, so it should draw out pretty good. Now I'm going to turn the wheel the other way so I can tighten a little bit on the front so we're drawing that evenly. So now we'll try and tighten up this one bolt on the front. Get this thing to draw up. It's going together quite nicely. Everything on this job so far has been pretty nice. Okay, that's far enough on that one. I get these ones on the back started out turning. Alright. All of our bolts are now fairly snug. So the next thing is going to be torquing them. I got this torque wrench from AutoZone, and by the quality of its construction seems to be okay. The numbers on it are so hard to read. I have to take it in a very light place to see what the heck the numbers are, so that's kind of a pain in the butt. But I'm just going with what they said in the video. They said 90 pounds. So I'm just going to hope that that guy was right. I tell you, they don't have much clearance. Your wrench ends up hitting the axle. It does make you wonder how much that affects the torque. It hits the axle where the constant velocity joint is. And you can't get very good grip on your fastener. So there's all kinds of disadvantages here. Let's see if that helps at all. There we go. There's 1, 2, 3. Okay, they're all torqued to 90 pounds. Next thing to do is get that nut put on that center so we don't forget about it, and we'll have to torque that up when it's all done and the wheel's on the ground. Okay, so the next thing we got to do here is we have to put our brake caliper back on, brake caliper mounting bracket back on, brake caliper back on, and then hook up this analog brakes wheel speed sensor cable. Not too big a deal. So next thing we'll do is we'll put on our brake caliper here. Brake caliper mounting plate, I guess I should say, and that's going to go right about like that. Here's our bolts, and I'm just going to reuse those bolts. They give you new bolts, but the old ones are fine. They were holding it on before, they can hold it on again. Before I put that on, I had to put on the rotor. By the way, one other thing is, when you get done, really as you are torquing that up, you should make sure that that is drawing up squarely, and it did, so I'm not worried about that. We'll put our rotor on here. That's all there is to that. Now, as you may recall from my Honda front wheel bearing replacement video, you won't have to do what I'm doing here next. You don't even have to do it now. I just think it keeps the road from flopping around. I put a lug nut on it, and that kind of just holds it in place. Keeps it from flopping around. You don't have to do it, you can just fight with it, but I like doing it. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is we'll put on our brake caliper mounting bracket. And that goes over your rotor like so. Making sure you have your anti-lock brake sensor cable out of the way. We'll put our bolts in. Already got anti-seize compound on them from last time. Put a little bit more on it. We'll tighten up our caliper mounting bolt bracket bolts. Alright, now let me get a torque spec on them. I might as well do it the right way. Alright, so the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to tighten these caliper mounting bracket bolts. Let's see, right here. There's the top one. There's the bottom one. Right where my finger is. There's your bottom. The bottom one's right there, and it's 125 pounds for the torque spec on that. So just showing you right now because it's going to be just about impossible to show you while I'm actually torquing them down. 18 millimeter, 125 foot-pounds. There we go. There's the other. Okay, as long as we're at this point, we'll clip that and anti-lock brake cable right into that area where it clips in on that caliper mounting. Actually, that's on the steering knuckle. We got that taken care of. And the next thing we're going to do is we will put our brake caliper back on. Here's where we want to be sure that we don't have our hose, our brake line twisted, and we don't. It's pretty much a straight shot. This should slide right over if no one stepped on the brake pedal of the truck. We should be able to put this caliper right over these brake pads. Like so. Now we'll put our nuts in that hold them on, or our bolts rather that hold them on. Hold on our caliper, put a little bit of anti-seize compound on it. Get the top one started. Gotta finagle it just a little bit to get it started. And we'll put in our bottom one. There we go. Thread those in by hand as far as we can get them. Now, we're going to take our 3/8 drive ratchet. Alright, and we will tighten these up. I'm not going to worry about torque on these. I'm just going to do them to what I think is right. That'll be more than tight enough. Alright, now I'm going to take off this old anti-lock brake cable. We'll probably unplug it up there somewhere, and then we will install this new one in the same place. Alright, this anti-lock brake cable pretty much just runs along the brake line, and it's just held onto it with some clips. So you can just pretty much pull it out wherever these larger rubber items are. They should pull right off of these clips fairly easily. Probably a little easier if it wasn't so cold. There we go. Now we'll find out exactly where that plugs in. It's got a, just goes through a loop there. So I'll have to open up the hood probably and see where that plugs together. We're on top of the passenger side fender with the hood open, looking at the fender wall, right behind the overflow tank for the coolant, okay? And almost directly behind that is where that analog brake sense wire comes and plugs in. So we unplug that, and that's how we get that taken apart. All right, now that I got that unplugged, it should come out fairly easy. There it is. And we just pull it out like that. And we will now feed our new one up through the exact same area and plug it in. All right, so that analog brake wheel speed sensor cable is easy enough to put in. It's pretty much self-explanatory. You just clip it in just like the old one was. You got these hunks of rubber on the cable, and that just plugs into those existing clips on the brake line. Pretty easy. You will notice it has some extraneous clips on it. That's probably for a different application. It's got one here and one about up there. You could take them off if you want to. I just left them on. I don't think it's going to hurt anything. So I got that all in place. Now we're down to the point where we are going to put the nut on this axle. All right, like I was saying, on this, we're going to put in that front axle nut. And you'll hear most people are going to say put Loctite on it, and well, I'm going to put anti-seize compound on it. I've had a lot more of these. I've never seen one come loose, but I've seen a whole bunch of them where they're so tight you wonder if you're ever going to get it off. The same is true with lug studs. A lot of people say you shouldn't put the anti-seize compound on lug studs. The only time I've ever seen them come loose is when someone didn't tighten them properly, and I've seen a whole hell of a lot of them where you can't get the suckers off without breaking the studs. So, especially when you got these aluminum wheels, because you have aluminum wheels, heating them, your lug nuts, is pretty much not an option. So you want to make sure you can get those lug nuts off, particularly if you have a flat tire on the road. Now, if you live in a southern climate where the vehicle's not getting bathed in salt, that might be one thing, but it's a different world out here, folks. In the Rust Belt, it's a totally different ball game. So I just think that's the way to go. If you don't want to put anti-seize compound on that, you want to use Loctite, be my guest. I am not going to tell you my way is the correct way of doing it. It's just, I've had less trouble in my life making sure something can come apart. So that's the way I do it. Now the torque spec on this nut here is, what was that? It was some high amount, pretty high. 184 pounds. Now the thing about that is, I don't have a torque wrench. I don't think my torque wrench goes up that high. I think that mine only goes up to 150 pounds. And I don't have a half-inch drive socket that fits that. And I don't have an adapter for half-inch to 3/4 inch drive. So there's all kinds of reasons why I am not going to torque this nut and with a torque wrench. I'm just going to get it really tight. That's the only game I got going on around here right now. So I'm going to tighten her up, and I'm going to stand on the end of this breaker bar. And I'm going to call that good enough. Once again, I guess if you don't like it, you can do this the way you think is proper. But that's what I got going on. So I'm going to turn these wheels so I have this breaker bar sticking out. Got my piece of metal here around the lug nut. Keep it from spinning. And I'm going to stand on the end of this breaker bar. And that's the way I'm going to do it. Let's just see here. Okay, now at this point I have to have this facing a little bit of a different angle so I can stand on it. So I got to change where I have my piece of metal mounted here. You might be wondering, well, why don't you just take the socket off and get a new grip of the socket? And the reason for that is because I had to pound that socket on because I don't have the proper size socket to begin with. But I'm telling you one thing, right there, that is going to be plenty tight enough. Okay? Just guessing, I was about a foot away, I weigh 200 pounds, so 200 foot-pounds thereabouts, right? Now, let us see if I can get that socket off of there. Good, I pounded on. You can't have every tool in the world. I suppose you could. I don't have money for every tool in the world. And also, even if it wasn't an issue of money, how do you decide which ones to buy? You know, pretty much with me, it's, if I desperately need a tool, I'll buy it. I'll buy the tools I desperately need, and then almost all the other tools is kind of a tie, and I kind of need them, but you can't buy everything. So let's just see if we can get this nut off. Wouldn't that be funny if that sucker didn't come? I'm sure we'll get it one way or another. Well, let me turn off the camera and work on this. Probably don't want to see me struggle with this.